Hello, I'm Matthew Atherton Baber, and today I'm going to talk with you about china, linens, and table setting. The holidays are rapidly approaching, and table setting and my thoughts on it are the most requested idea that you have sent me, all of you in the audience. Thank you for that, by the way. I love knowing what you're interested in, and today I'm primarily going to talk about china and linens. So if you want to know about silver or crystal or other things, please let me know. Just put it in the comments below because I read and respond to all of them. Also, please be patient with the fact that we've adjusted the exposure for this filming to enhance the linens. Some of them are light, some of them are dark, patterned, damasks. I want you to be able to see it as well as possible. So I might be a bit dark, but hopefully you'll be able to see the demo particularly well. Other than that, what do I need to tell you to get started? I do want to share with you a conversation I had this week with a new florist in London, because you might say, why in the world should I care about table setting? If you're not one of the people that suggested I make this film, you might wonder why I care, and you should either. So I want to share this little story with you, and I also want to say stay tuned to the end because I will show you how to lay a basic place setting of china, flatware, so forth. That is a basic guide you can use for casual, meal, formal, anything. That will come at the end. But anyway, I was talking with this florist. She had left a career of 25 years doing something different, and she invested in her floral education, and she had opened her business in London a few months ago, 6 weeks, 3 months, something like that. And she was telling me about the trials and tribulations and being unsure about building a clientele. And oh, she was so worried, and she was just, I could tell, slightly forgetting why she had decided to pursue a new career in floristry in the first place. And I said to her, please forgive me for giving you a bit of unsolicited advice, but heavens knows I've been there. Over all the decades I've been at it, I have had to build and rebuild clientele several times because I have changed locations, tastes have changed, global pandemic, all sorts of things have necessitated that we build and rebuild a clientele. So I said to her, the thing that I found most helpful, and I learned this when I was young, thankfully, because it's been extremely useful, when I had almost no money at all. And that was this. If you can learn to identify the parts of your life and work that you can control and are most fulfilling and rewarding and deeply satisfying to you, you become utterly impervious to the ebb and flow and up and down of life. And for me, and I always love that quote from the American painter Edward Hopper, that great art, and I would put in there my own addition, hospitality, entertaining, etc. Great art is the outward expression of the artist's inner life and personal view of the world. And I don't know about you, if you have found my channel and stuck around, thank you, and I imagine we probably share something of this in common. My inner life and my view of the world has everything to do with the food I eat, how I eat it, how I serve it to the people I love, and how that is all a means by which we connect together. That is the beautiful part. And when I was having this discussion with this woman in London, you could see she was understanding, oh, that is tremendously empowering. My enjoyment of life, my validation as a professional does not necessarily have to depend on how many people are hiring me to work, or how much money I'm making from doing the thing I love. So take from that what you will, but I hope it helps you focus in on the aspects of your life, maybe even laying the table and how you entertain family and friends, that gives you a deep and fulfilling sense of meaning and purpose. Now, I also want to say, what in the world qualifies me to talk about china and linens and table setting? First of all, I grew up in a family where those things mattered. My mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother, for that matter, were collectors, and they used their collections. We used certain kinds of collections day to day, and we used a bit more extravagant collections on Sunday lunch, for example, maybe Saturday evening dinner, and certainly holidays. So silver and crystal and multiple china patterns and linen patterns and all of that to choose from was very natural to me. And at the height of my commercial work as an event designer, producer, caterer, all of that, boy, did I have access to choice. I probably in-house at one point had well over 100 linen patterns, 6 or 8 china patterns in huge quantities, you know, thousands of pieces to serve really big parties. And the same for glassware and flatware and so on. Through the years, as often happens with age and I hope maturity, I have met people and had experiences that contoured my view. And I have arrived at a point that I'm going to really focus sharing with you today, and that is this. When I was young and I was doing that kind of entertaining, budgets were unlimited, which meant choice was unlimited. I could get anything in the world and use it. And yes, that's exciting, but it doesn't always give you the most beautiful design. So whether you're interested in table setting or you're interested in design, whether you're interested in art, there is, I hope, something in what I'm about to share today for you. I'll start at the point of saying, with a lot of practice, you develop a rhythm of understanding what types of furnishings work well together in different kinds of situations, and you inevitably end up using more of something more often than other things. It's just how it goes. And, you know, you find your way. And I was doing that, and I was sort of relying on some linens and china and such more than others. And then I met my wonderful Italian friend. And if you want to hear the start of that story, check out my Biscuits film, because I give you sort of introduction to who she was and why she was so marvelous. But I was visiting her one time, and we were giving a party, and the guests were coming later in the day, and we were tidying up the house a bit. And she said, what do you think we should do? And I said, oh, I think this table, there was a little side table, beautiful veneered table, and the only thing it had on it was a lamp. But it was positioned beside a sofa so that you could appreciate the grain coming in this, you could see the grain through the sunlight coming in the window there. And I said, I think that table is a bit bare. Let's add something there. What could we find to put there? And she said, no, no, my dear. The table and the grain are their own decoration. The lamp is its own decoration. In the daytime, the sunlight shining on the wood grain is one effect. In the evening, the lamplight is another. Nothing more is needed. And that interaction was when I really began to understand quality and design, dare I say, luxury. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, so said Leonardo da Vinci, and echoed by many since. And I even love, I mean, this is a bit of an Italian idea, I suppose, because I'm about to quote another Italian, Arrigo Cipriani, son of the founder of the great Harry's Bar in Venice, famously said that simplicity is made beautiful through many details. And I have found that that means the quality of the materials, not only how they look, but how they function. If they require too much care and we don't have the help to do that and it runs us ragged, maybe that's not practical for our lives. So we choose something different. But this is the kind of idea that I'm going to talk about as I show you a lot of linens. I didn't even count them. I might have 20 linens out here, and I probably have approaching or maybe even a little over a dozen different china patterns. So let me stop the film and make sure I don't run out of recording time, and I'll be right back to start fresh, and we'll dive right in. See you then. Welcome back, and thank you for sticking around. Let's dive right into the linen. I have laid these out in layers. So what I plan to do is talk you through them, show you some china that I might or might not suggest with all of their different characteristics, and then I'll cut, peel these away to reveal the next layer and be right back to continue. So let's just start here. This is a vintage, probably French or Italian linen. I bought it recently in the shop of an antique and vintage linen dealer who I like a lot. She happened to have a pair, so my husband and I were eager to snap them up. It might be great for the fall season. It is a stamped, printed cotton that is easy to care for, though I would not necessarily use it with a lot of modern laundry detergents in an aggressive way. But as you see, it is a predictably repeating pattern in basically red and blue on a white ground. So this is a casual look, and that gives us a starting point. I'll come back to that. Now, this linen is exquisite. I'll peel this back so you can see more of it. I hope you can see the hem stitch edge. This may be hard to appreciate on film, but it is absolutely the finest woven linen with just a butter finish. And it has a beautiful pulled hem stitch border and about a 3-inch band around the edge. This is exquisite and exceptional, and I dare say one of the highest standards of linen any of us can have and use. Of course, linen wrinkles, and it requires a little bit of special care and pressing, but that is but one consideration. Next, some of what I'm showing you are napkins and towels, of which I have large linens. It is just easier to show you a small piece. This is a printed linen, very autumnal for our season now. This is ultra casual. But this is an option that you could, it's modern made, made with use in mind. You can launder it, you can probably barely even have to touch it with an iron and use it very easily, but it is a bold visual commitment. Here on the side, let's look at this. This linen, like the very pale cream linen I just showed you a moment ago, these are both antique linens, and boy, you can tell in the quality. This pale, pale pink lends itself well as the fabric quality, and it also has a beautifully pulled hem stitch border with a slightly more narrow banding. It lends itself to more formal entertaining, but could also be quite casual. So, as a general rule, I want to suggest to you this. I encourage you to think less about tablescaping, isn't that a horrible thing, where you pile as much as you can on the table to make a spectacle. No. Instead of that, I encourage you to think about the room, the lighting, the time of day, and always keep in mind, if you have a busier, louder linen, think of using a more simple china, and vice versa. A very bold china perhaps should use a more quiet, universal kind of pale or monochromatic linen. Also keep in mind, really, really important, the style of the linen, the level of formality should have some kind of parity with the china, also of course with your flatware and glassware and so on. And the food at the dinner table, the whole point is the food and the conversation. So everything, like in a museum, you don't go to a great museum and have all the art piled on top of each other. No, things are set apart so that you can see what is most important as a curated experience. And that might be a bit of an extreme example, but that's the idea. We are showcasing the food, and the people are the ultimate decoration for any room and any party. So keep that in mind. So here we go. Let's start back with this rather casual linen. This is the most casual china I'm going to show you today. It was designed by Thomas O'Brien for Target, the mass retailer. That's right. And here at the cottage, we have a set of this that we use. What do you think about that? I think an argument could be made. This gray banding that sort of implies that it might have been handmade, it certainly wasn't, but that's the idea, picks up on the blue. This little sort of, I don't know, vaguely tan brown border might be very nice. Maybe you have a wood-handled flatware, Maybe you even put this type of plate on a bare wood table that's rather casual. Not a French polish glossy finish, certainly, but you get the idea. Would you take this casual plate and use it on this beautifully formal linen? I would not. What about on this pink? Actually, the pink and the gray is kind of nice. So if you styled it in a context that was rather casual, that might work nicely. And the contrast between high and low can be effective. Just deploy it with thoughtfulness. And what do you think of this? Highly patterned, very sort of rustic country style print with a casual rustic style plate. I would absolutely make that combination without hesitation. The brown border even picks up the brown of the branches. Let me hold it up so hopefully you can see it a bit better. It's hard to do here with both hands, but I hope that helps. Now let me put this back out for you. Hopefully not ruffle my microphone too offensively. So let's see what's next. How about a classic French white porcelain made by a Pilco? We also have a big set of this here at the cottage. It is classic, it's casual, it could also be quite formal. I have been in Paris at very, very fancy places and served on exactly this same china. So it is versatile, and that reminds me, just like your clothing wardrobe, I always recommend with furnishings at home, if you want to have one or two fun pieces, even I dare say garish pieces, Diana Vreeland always talked about too much good taste can be boring, and a touch of bad taste is good for all of us because it's like a little dash of paprika, it spices things up. So if you want to have something that's a big commitment, maybe even, I don't know, covered in sequins or fringe, beware that if your budget is limited, you can't use that linen for everything, for example. Inès de la Frésange, the French high fashion model, used to always advise people of their wardrobe. Spend about half your budget on reliable basics that you can mix and match, and spend the other 50% on sort of statement pieces and accessories so that you can dress the rest up in a million different ways. And that is a wonderful rule to live by for your home furnishings as well. So, classic French white. Would I use it on this tablecloth? Yes, I would. I would also beware that in some light, the age and the slight yellow patina of the linen with the stark bluish white glaze might be enhanced. So just be aware of that. Would I use this French white on this beautiful ivory linen? Yes, I would. Would I use it on this highly printed linen? Absolutely. Would I use it on pale pink? Absolutely. You get the idea. This is universal. This you can almost always use beautifully. So, what else? I have another casual option. This is our daily china up in Kentucky. This is Villeray and Bach, and the pattern is called French Garden. And because of this border, it's called Green Line. People go nuts over this china. And anytime I post a picture on Instagram, everyone wants to know what the china is. So I will give you a good look at it. So let's go here. Would I use it on this kind of boldly printed linen? An argument might be made, but it wouldn't be my intuitive choice. Depends on context. Would I use it on this fine linen? It could be done. I think this is a bit casual, particularly with the scalloped edge, for this degree of quality and formality. Although this is a very high quality china. I'm not insulting it in any way. Would I put it on this? What do you think? Yes or no? I think the greens are a bit different. The whites are a bit different. This is a bit of a commitment of pattern. It could be done, but only with great skill, so I would be cautious. And what about the pink and green here? Maybe not for a formal dinner, but this could be very charming for lunch. We have a table in the Roses up in Kentucky. And if we were to have some people for lunch, which does occasionally happen, this might be an utterly charming combination. So, there's that. Let's talk just a minute about napkins, because I only brought one out to show you, and I'm going to show it to you in different contexts. But this is a beautiful, extremely heavyweight Belgian linen napkin with a real pulled hem-stitch border and a very, very heavy band that weights it beautifully. And it is in this sort of universal gray I have a linen in this, I have runners in this, I have lots and lots of napkins in it because I use it all the time. So, let me show you. Look how easily you could use that. Even though this is a very nice thing, maybe don't press it too formally, and it's very casual, lovely with this. Depending on coloration, you could possibly use it with this beautiful formal linen, although chances are you would probably buy this kind of very formal, high-quality linen with napkins. I did not because it is antique, but I have others I could use instead of this. Look at this. This works great. Very nice. And pink and gray is a classic combination. I think that's utterly beautiful, though maybe not with a colored plate like the green. That might be an awful lot. So, while we're still here in the beginning, let me answer a question that I am often asked. What about a charger plate? What is a charger? This is a charger. This one is in probably 22 or 24 karat gold leaf. As you see, it is larger than a dinner plate because, let me demo, this goes down on the table before another plate is put on top. I did not choose these to go together. It's merely an example. But these tend to be used at dinner more than lunch. They tend to be used more 20 or 25 years ago than they're used now, but I still see them. In fact, I saw some pictures from a wedding last weekend where they were used enthusiastically, I'll say. And what I will give you as guidance on chargers is anything that goes on the table has to come off. So if this is down, you are going to have a blank charger. Maybe your napkin is in the middle of your charger. But when and how will the courses be served? If it is a family-style meal, which you might call French service or service à la bourgeois, where all the dishes are placed on the table for guests to serve themselves, there is never a time when anyone's going to clear this away, and I don't like them on the table for the whole of dinner service. I think that's distracting from the food, as we discussed. So if you're giving a kind of party where you have a lot of help, and the salad plate is served on the charger, and then when the salad is cleared, the charger is cleared, that's a scenario that might work well. Generally speaking, I have stacks and stacks of those chargers, and I don't use them any longer for entertaining at home. I hope that answers your question, and I hope everything I'm saying reiterates the idea that the quality and the function of every element matters. If you're going to buy into my idea, which I hope you will, at least enough to try it for yourself and see how it works, that less is more. Every single element counts tremendously, just like a recipe that only has a few ingredients. So stay right there. Let me clear these linens away, and I'll be back with another round to illustrate further. See you then. Welcome back. I feel like I'm having you around my table, and I ought to ask you what you'd like to drink, and could I get you some more bread and butter? Okay, so let's keep going. Let me show you the linens again first. I hope you can see this linen. And I'm going to slightly disrupt my setup to show it to you. This is an absolutely exquisite linen. It was woven in Italy in one of Europe's oldest mills, and I fear the camera can't pick it up well, but it is extremely finely woven of two colors, a sort of barely silvery white and an exquisite sort of bare golden khaki beige, sort of taupey beige, and it is a fruit, you might call it tutti frutti, kind of double damask, and it is subtle but not boring. I want to make the point strongly that simple should never, ever, ever mean basic. Simple does not mean basic. When we are talking about linens, how they fit the table, how they drape from the edge of the table, it all matters. And while we're here, this is a good time to tell you how I suggest you prepare your table. It doesn't matter if your table is small or large, round, rectangular, square, oval. You want to protect your table first and foremost. So what I really like is a moving pad, like a heavy-duty furniture moving pad. That's what I've always used in really high-end entertaining. But sometimes for a home linen, the weight is not heavy enough to anchor it to the table. And when someone puts down their glass, for example, it may have enough of a padding that the glass tips over, and that's the last thing you want. So for most residential use, I recommend you buy, and you can either buy it as pre-cut sizes, or you can buy the yardage and cut it to size yourself. It does not need any hemming or edging. It is a waterproof vinyl table pad with a waterproof synthetic cotton type or wool type backing on the reverse. And you put it down so that the padding touches your table, the vinyl is up, and you lay your linen over that. On the edge of the table, where your linen cascades over, it will soften the edge, that pad will soften the edge, and when you put something down on it, there's just enough of a cushion that, first of all, it deadens the sound, and second of all, it feels more luxurious and substantial. You'd be surprised at how it elevates your table. And should someone knock over their water or tea or wine or whatever they're having, yes, you have to clean your linen, but it protects your table, which is a huge advantage. What other questions might you have right now? If you're thinking about linens and how to size them, I'm not going to give you specific sizes, except to say that you have to think about the drop that you like. In the most formal situations, I always use a linen that drops on all sides equally, not only to the floor, but very often turns under enough that when someone sits in the chair and the chair is pushed up, their toes are in a bit of a puddle. Now, a maybe a bit more modern idea is that older people and people with mobility trouble might get tangled in the linen and fall down. I have even had clients worry about that with a linen that slightly brushed the lap of someone sitting in a chair at the table. So, if I'm not doing an ultra long linen, and sometimes I do them so that they fit perfectly, just to graze the floor, and that is an awfully elegant look. The perfection is almost unparalleled in that absolutely immaculate fit, but that is hard to achieve, and it's probably more than you want to go to at home, more trouble than you want to go to at home. So, I say have at least a 12-inch drop from the edge of the table down on all sides, at least a 12-inch. That way, visually, when you approach the table, you don't see this tiny little skinny skirt going all the way around the top that looks like someone shrunk the tablecloth in the wash by accident. Typically, a tabletop is 30 inches high, give or take, and a seat is 17 or 18 or 19 inches from the floor, give or take. So that gives you 10 inches between the tabletop and the chair, and a few inches to brush the knees of the person sitting, and still not necessarily become tangled with their napkin. So all things to think about, but I encourage you, please, please, don't have a skinny little drop all the way around. It looks ridiculous. So, back to the linens. I hope you can see this. It is an example of something that I think you will find universally useful. More on that in a moment. This one is a wonderful representation of a linen that I also have in multiples. And the middle has a tone-on-tone pattern. It is woven into the damask. But there's a border. So I'm showing you this to say, this is something to think about. A border gives you an opportunity to have some interest that does not necessarily detract from what's happening on the tabletop, say the food, the drink, the flatware, the company. And it is mostly enjoyed from a distance when you're approaching the table or leaving and looking back to remember your marvelous experience. Now, here's an example of basically a solid. Isn't this fabulous? This blue color is beautiful, and the quality of the damask is, I would say, nearly unparalleled. How would I use this? I would think of this in a way as an interesting solid, but I would be careful before I added too much pattern onto it. Because remember, the surface, in other words, the linen itself, is its own decoration. And if it's not, I encourage you to think about choosing a different linen that is. Economy of materials is very important. If you are only buying 1 or 2 items instead of a dozen, you have more to spend on each item, no matter your budget. And I would put this gray very much in the same category as that blue that I just showed, only it has a rather dark center with a lighter border. So this might be an opportunity to show off some lighter china. Now, I know what you see under there is a terribly exciting pattern, but stick with me with this top layer first. Okay, so this happens to be my parents' wedding china. It is Lenox moon spun, and you can see how it works with these different linens. Have I used it beautifully with this linen? Yes, I have. Mixing neutrals is an extremely European idea, and it's very, very chic. I originally learned that from an English florist friend of mine. And she mixed and matched every kind of neutrals, everything from almost white to olive green that was almost charcoal. Mix and match beautifully. It's always safe because they're all earth tones. So this is a sort of sophisticated, pale version of that. You see, when I put this on this blue linen, let me hold it up for you, what does it do? It brings out the platinum banding. That is indeed a beautiful effect. In the evening, with some candlelight, that might indeed be quite magical. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but there's a tiny bit of true white overlay. And I would be careful about too much of that with a linen that also has a white pattern, but it could work beautifully. And similar effect here, but more pronounced. Now, I'll tell you one of the great things with the next china I want to show you. One of the great things that my mother and grandmother did in their respective collecting. When one of them bought a china pattern, the other one sort of kept their eyes open for a comparable china pattern. It didn't need to be the same, but if it could be used together, they could share collections and serve much bigger parties, because my mother and my grandmother had very similar social circles. They were not likely to both need big sets of china on the same night. They did the same with crystal and with silver. They each chose what they liked, but they were similar enough they could mix them. Here is an example. I just showed you my mother's wedding china. This is my grandmother's. This came later than her wedding, though. She bought this pattern later in life. This is also by Lenox. The pattern is called Weatherly. And in fact, when my husband and I married, we took my grandmother's Weatherly, and to it, we bought a big estate set of vintage Weatherly, and now we have a huge set of it. So if we need to serve a big party at our house, typically, this is what you will get. Just like the previous example. It functions in all the same ways, though I want to show you, Weatherly has the advantage of this beautiful scalloped edge and some interesting serving pieces. So that's something just keep in mind as you go. China is like everything else. It has its individual character. So see what you like and see what you can mix and match. That's truly important. What else? Let's look at some things not to do for a moment. Look at this beautiful china. This is just a salad plate, but it's what I had to hand. This is called Gold Brocade. It's by Fitz and Floyd, and boy, it's dramatic. Probably blends in with my shirt. Because this is such a commitment, would I use it with any of these? I would not. In fact, I'm still not sure what sort of food I would serve on them. They're beautiful, they have a fabulous look, but this sort of bold, bold visual commitment must be deployed with caution. Might even be a great plate to hang on the wall, but I'm not sure about putting it on most linens. And what else? For interest's sake, let me clear this away, and I'll be right back again to show you some more. And I'm back again. Welcome, welcome. Okay, these are some dazzling linens. I'm thrilled to show you. I hate to say grand finale because we're not done yet, but it's getting good, so settle in and enjoy. First of all, this is a linen which I have in many, many multiples. I might even have, gosh, a dozen in this same pattern. These are from former imperial mills. The quality is stunning. They are all of neoclassical motifs with beautiful hemstitch edge. They're in neutral colors, which makes them awfully, awfully flexible. And boy, when you've got something like this, the last thing you want to do is distract from it. Of course, they are in extremely fine linen, which means they launder beautifully but do require some pressing. Next, look at this. This is a true treasure, and if you love old traditional culture and entertaining, this is a piece that will interest you tremendously. This is and I have been told by authorities in fine textiles, handmade textiles, historic fabrics, and such, this is a museum quality piece made by my late great-grandmother. This is not the color of age. I mean, it's probably aged a bit, but this ecru is the intended color. And this can cover an extremely large table. My grandparents had a big table made, gosh, 30 years ago or more, and it could easily seat maybe 16 and pushing 18 for dinner, and fully open with a base cloth, because you really don't want to see wood beneath this, although that fabulous big table did have a wood-grained custom fit pad that looked like wood showing through, so that's a special situation. But with a linen like this open, and this beautiful, beautiful lace work that is not only old-fashioned, but something you don't see often, and talk about special care. This linen even has to go to the restorer occasionally to keep it in perfect condition. So if you're lucky enough to have something like that, use it and take care of it. If you're interested in me making a future film on how to take care of your really special linens, just say so in the comments, and maybe I'll do it. We'll see. And here we are. This is newly made fabric that I have not yet had sewn into a linen, but I intend to. And because the color and the drama, and let me hold it up for you, the color and the drama and the seasonal appropriateness of it. Look at this. What more could you want? Well, I'll tell you what I don't want: to use this beneath a heavily patterned china. So let's start there. Let's think about what we might use. Intuitively, my first thought, even though it's a bit stark, might be French white. That could be done beautifully, but as I said, it is an awfully bold contrast. So, here we go. Something like this, where basically the quality, the color, and the light banding, with this slight detail in the plate that is not applied separate, that is in the making of the plate, that might be very nice. I would like it even better with this warm palette if the border was a burnished gold. But just wait, we're getting there. So, let's say you're feeling fancy. This plate is probably early 20th century. It is Felda china from Germany. It has a beautiful sort of deep charcoal laurel banding and a little hairline here descending into a slightly pronounced bowl shape for the plate. But let's look at this. I typically would want a bit of a richer ivory or cream to pair with this rich, rich linen. But because of that slight bit of old gold, that's awfully nice. Speaking of gold, the kind of gold, the quality of gold, the age and the burnish of gold matters. Let me show you a little demo. Look at those two golds side by side. Both of these are old. I like that. Now, this is a holiday plate for what we're going to discuss in a moment, but notice this gold is brighter and more yellow. Very different effect. All things to be aware of. Would I use this plate on this linen? I probably would not. This linen, again, this is a showstopper. The only thing I would use to show it off are probably pieces from its era, more or less, so that when you sit at that table, it's basically the same experience that my great-grandmother gave her guest when she made it. Isn't that a special thing? That's what we want when we entertain. Just like in floristry, just like in our cooking, our entertaining should make people sit up with surprise and notice and think, boy, I'm never going to experience this exact combination ever again, so I better relish every bit. That's what we want. I would absolutely use this. Again, a bit more ivory would be my choice if I was choosing china out of a massive, massive collection. But that's very nice. Now, let's see, what else? I pulled this out. This is not food safe, but this is a beautiful bottom of a Japanese imari covered gourd dish. And I do have some imari china, so I thought it would be an interesting example as well. But you have to see the effect it has in combination with each of these. And I always say, even if you want to combine elements that aren't intuitively harmonious, the unifying factor must be equal quality. Quality is the unifying motif, always, no matter what you're designing. This I might actually do. Imari would have been available in America in the era when this linen was made, and that is beautiful because this is an old patina. This is clearly not new, and in this context, that's hugely advantageous. So let's talk about the holidays. Holidays are coming, and I have two patterns of holiday china. The first is Lenox. I never remember the name, although it's very simple. Oh, just holiday. I always think that's too basic. This was originally my grandmother's Christmas china. And have I used it at different times with both of these linens? Yes, I have. I would not do this. This is too much look. In fact, the simple, just ivory, sort of cream-colored linen that I showed you in the opening bit, I very often use it with this. To that same point, I hope you might find this exciting. This is Fitz and Floyd, the very famous St. Nicholas pattern, which in the original vintage production is a bit hard to get. And this is my mother's Christmas china, and Christmas morning, this is on the table every year, sometimes Christmas Eve as well. I have used it on this antique linen as well, and it can be effective, but a bit distracting. So if you do it for fun, not for finesse. And certainly, this is not a Christmas linen. The coloration might be very nice, although this kind of rich antique ivory ground is a stark contrast to the white background of this china. So the important thing is you have to keep all the factors in mind at once. That's all the china and linen I want to show you per se, but now I want to show you a basic place setting and a couple of ideas about what to do with the napkin. No one ever knows where to put the napkin or how to fold it. So I don't want to confuse things by bringing in a lot of choices of silver, a lot of choices for glassware, and so on. I'm just going to give you a very basic universal setup, and I will be right back with it. See you then. We are back again, and I hope you find this segment particularly helpful. Whether you are just having a nice meal for yourself, or yourself and a partner at home, or your family, or you have guests coming for holidays, you do this the same way. I'm going to give you not only the lay of where things go and how to think about using them, but also take some things away that aren't used so much anymore. So hopefully it helps you feel that this is very, very manageable and serviceable in your life. So let me tell you what I've got here, and then I'm going to show you some ideas about how to fold the napkin. As you see, I chose this vintage, basically red, white, and blue linen. I put a beautiful French white plate on it, and I have just used here our simple everyday at the cottage flatware, which is the bamboo pattern by Hampton Silversmiths. I think they've changed the name a bit of the company now, but anyway, I bought it, gosh, 25 years ago and love it. Only gotten better with age. That's a good buy. Look for that sort of thing that you want to keep forever. It's worth the money. So what have I done? I'm explaining this upside down. so I hope I get it right. The plate is in the middle. Each place setting needs at least 22 inches. Now, that is the old standard rule, and a lot of bodies are bigger now, so think about your guest and what's comfortable. The last thing you want your guest to be is uncomfortable at the table. You want them to settle in and enjoy and stay for a while, not rush off. To that point, have comfortable chairs for them too. But French white, I have then put to the left of the plate salad fork on the outside, dinner fork on the inside. On the opposite side, I have given them a dinner knife, a salad knife, and a soup spoon. Now, you only lay anything on the table, glassware, flatware, condiments, any of it, if your menu requires it. So you'd never put a soup spoon, for example, if you're not serving soup. Also, at the top of the plate, I've given a large spoon. I have given a salad fork. In this case, it is a dessert spoon and a dessert fork. The spoon goes on top, and how do you remember which direction to put the handles? When the main meal is finished, and all this flatware is cleared away, because you've already used it, the idea is you can slide the spoon and fork down in place. So the fork slides down to where the previous fork sat, and the spoon slides down where the previous knives and or spoons sat. When I set a table these days, and I'm entertaining at home, I very rarely serve a first course. I serve very, very simple hors d'oeuvres. One, I don't want to have to make a lot of hors d'oeuvres that take away from people's appetite at dinner, and saves me a tremendous amount of time, saves people filling up on them and then wasting your dinner when they're no longer hungry. We just don't tend to serve as many hors d'oeuvres as we used to. So we also don't serve as many seated first courses as we used to most of the time. If you're doing, sort of look down your nose, high entertaining, maybe you do it every day, but that's not how I live these days, and you probably don't either. So in that case, you would not need a salad fork. You certainly would not need a salad knife, and you don't need a soup spoon. So, what does that leave us with? Fork and knife. It is for whatever is served as the main course, and when I do it, I serve some kind of protein, some kind of starch, and some kind of vegetable. And if it's summer and lettuces and such are fresh, instead of a cooked vegetable, the salad is my vegetable, and it's on the same plate with the entree, or the principal, as it might be called in some places. Then I do always serve dessert. And to keep people from feeling that the flatware is a bit confusing, I always put the dessert flatware above the plate. I always do it, even for casual meals. What about the glasses, you say? Good question. Above the dinner knife, at the tip of the dinner knife, goes the water glass. If you want to have one novelty glass, let's say we had a beautiful, looking at this linen might inspire me to have a beautiful blue glass made by Murano or something like that. This would be the place for it, for the water. Please, please, only use clear glass for wine or other beverages. First of all, the color of the glass and of the beverage can combine and look very nasty on a dinner table. Not appealing at all. Certainly not appetizing. Also, some maker has gone to a lot of trouble to make their wine or whatever beverage you're serving in this glass, which is the wine glass, but maybe it's something else special that's not alcoholic. Whoever has prepared it has gone to a lot of trouble. And enjoying the color and the clarity or opacity, the characteristics of that beverage, seeing them and enjoying them is vital. And you can't see them through colored glass. So please, please keep that in mind. If you want a novelty glass, use it for water. But again, keep in mind all the other suggestions and guidelines we've discussed. It is a bit more of something I've seen done in Britain, sometimes in France. The main point, I think, is less the country and places where a lot of glassware is used. If you have a dinner knife and a salad knife, sometimes the water glass is shifted between them so that then it gives you a bit more space, and you can put the white wine glass and then to make a triangle, the red wine glass. But the way I entertain, if I really don't change wines during the meal almost ever. So one wine glass just does it, and if some people want red and some want white, it's fine with me. If they want a clean glass, I always have them at hand. Also, salt and pepper. I'm not one of those people who sneer at someone salting their food in my house. Maybe they like it differently than I do, so let them salt it. I will show you. Look at this. My husband gave me a pair of them. They are sterling silver, probably Edwardian, but I forget the date. I'd have to look it up. Sterling silver oyster shells as salt cellars. Something like this is a small little exquisite detail. And he also gave me, which I didn't have to hand, or I would show you, a beautiful demi-tasse spoon of a totally separate make that I believe the bowl of the spoon might even be gold washed, but the handle is all seaweed and encrusted with tiny, tiny little iterations of sea life. Little details like that. When you have not cluttered up your table with junk, little details like that become magical, and your guests will never forget. Also, if you want to use a pepper shaker, that's your business, but I always prefer freshly cracked pepper. It lets guests do it their way. It's fresh. Make sure the peppercorns, are fresh, and that they're a good variety, not something rancid that sat on the shop shelf or your back pantry for ages. And when you put them out, if it's a big table, certainly have multiple salt and pepper, because you can't have someone, 6 people down passing it all the way down the table. But when you put the salt and pepper on the table, for the diner, the salt is always served on the right. And I have been told, so I trust it, but I don't know that this is true, that tradition came into practice, first of all, because it is assumed that most people are right-handed, and that's an assumption we don't make so much anymore, but that was the historic assumption, so that they would be reaching for the salt more readily than the pepper. Also, for the blind, a tradition that they knew if they reached on the right, they were reliably reaching salt. Again, I don't know that to be fact, but those are the 2 stories of why we do that I have always heard. So now let's talk about napkins. I'm going to show you again my beautiful Belgian linen, and it's not even pressed for the occasion. I did not press any of these. When I make these films, I literally drag things out and show you because I do them in the course of the life I'm really living, and I don't have time to stand around pressing a dozen linens just for demo. But I never ever suggest you do these sort of, I will call them so old-fashioned they might be anachronistic napkin folds, where you have a swan or a fleur-de-lis or a fan standing above your plate. No, none of that. Also, you might have to starch your napkin, and I never, ever, ever recommend you put starch on cotton, linen, anything that goes on the table. No starch, just press. So, the simplest thing you can do is what you just saw me do. I took this napkin, a big, generous napkin, mind you. I folded it in half, and made sure to be relatively precise, and in half again, and I just made a square that I turned sideways. And when you have any sort of fold like this, you want the fold to be on the left side, the diner's left side, just like the fold of a book. The spine of the book is on the left, and you open, exactly the same. It would also be true if, let me turn this around to be sure I'm showing you properly. If I folded it like this, and I put it always to the left of the place setting, napkin to the left, just like a book, the fold would be on the left as well. And never ever press your linen to put these creases in hard. These are not even sealed with your finger. They are merely folded and let fall naturally. That is the elegance of a beautiful fabric. Let me show you a fold that I do all the time. Let's see if I can do it upside down. I have the back side of the napkin up, and I do thirds. I want to make sure I'm doing this properly. And then I come up with thirds again. And I think I did it upside down backwards. I would prefer this crease. See, no loose end on the left, but you get the idea. And what do I like about this? Let me show you here. What do I like about this? It shows that beautiful hem stitch so that the diner can appreciate it. And let me see if I can figure it out. I don't mean to do this out of your view. I'll show you what I did if I do it right. There used to be some way where we did it and you saw both. I suppose this is something like it. If you wanted to do this, let me turn it around. I think this is the right way. You could, this is not a very precise way of doing it, but you could fold it so that the ends meet. And then if you had a menu card, you could tuck it in, for example, and you would see the hem stitch below and on either side. And again, thoughtful details. Don't obscure beauty, quality, and genuine style with things you don't need and that your guests will not enjoy any more than if you didn't have them. I also want to tell you, if you're being really formal about your table setting, you always want the edge of your plate and the edge of your flatware, the end here, the terminal end, to be about 1 inch from the top edge of your table. And no, I don't run around with a ruler. I have learned that my thumbnail, at the length I keep it habitually trimmed, is 1 inch. Most adult humans are. So I literally check it like that all across. And an oft asked question, what if you have a round table or an oval table? What do you do with the flatware? You curve the terminal end 1 inch, I'm just using this as an example, 1 inch from the edge of the table, curved right along with the table, whatever direction it curves. Set your flatware as we discussed before, that's how it goes, with, at the widest point, a few millimeters between each piece of flatware. That's the lay of the land. I hope you found it helpful. I hope you saw some china and linens and combinations that inspired you. I always suggest that when you can, buy vintage or antique. It's better for the environment and it's more interesting. One of the most unsung elements of design that I never ever hear anyone mention, even when they teach design, is chance. And when I go out into an antique market, I find things I didn't even know to look for. And then people say, my word, what brilliant combinations. And they say, however, did you come up with them? And I want to say, I didn't necessarily. I was open to them and I discovered them. And I was thoughtful with how I used them, but I never set out to find necessarily that linen or that china. I simply collected what I loved. You must love every piece. And your draw to a certain aesthetic over time, again, unified with quality, consistent quality, will make it all work together. And that, my friends, is style. I hope you found this helpful. See you soon. You thought you were rid of me, but not yet. As soon as we cut, I realized that many of you will want to know, what about other things on the table? What about flowers or some other sort of centerpiece? What about decor, whatever that might entail? What about serving pieces? And the reason I didn't address it is frankly because I don't use them much at all. I use serving pieces, certainly, but anything extra on the table, I never ever use. But there are times when you want candlelight. There are times when you want a little touch of flowers or some kind of centerpiece. So stick with me. I'll give you a little more information. I'm just going to talk through all of this. I quickly pulled it from what was to hand. First of all, because it's related to china, don't forget your serving pieces are china and decoration too. It goes for the bowls, the plates, the platters you use, as well as the serving utensils, the spoons and the forks, and so on. This is a luncheon napkin, small, still folded in half here, that is part of the set of that beautiful pink linen I showed you earlier. And I wanted to show you this fantastic 19th century fish platter from France with the marvelous crest. Would I use this with other china? Absolutely. I don't have a whole set of this china. A pairing with this kind of napkin or even that beautiful gray would be lovely. I would not put it on this linen. I haven't chosen these things because it necessarily is something I would pair with this. I'm just showing you additional examples. Also, a chop plate, usually about 13 inches diameter, is extremely useful. You can serve all sorts of things on it. And if you don't want to have flowers, but you want some kind of a centerpiece, think about using your dessert, or even down a very long table, desserts, plural, as your centerpiece. Just always, does not matter if it's cut flowers, live plants, food. Cheese boards are also fabulous as the centerpiece because it can be your first course. And after dessert, people sit around the table with their coffee or their cognac and they keep eating at it the rest of the night. Awfully good idea. If you're interested in how to do a great cheese board, you might drop that in the comments too, so I know. But when you put your elbow on the dinner table and make a fist, the conventional wisdom is you never want a centerpiece taller than your closed fist. Certainly don't open your hand because that's too far. Closed fist, and I say, this is far too tall. Flowers are best appreciated from the top view anyway. Think about it. They grow up to the sun. And they're smiling up to the sun to soak in all of its rays. They literally are evolved to be their most magnificent from the top. So if you have a centerpiece that's anywhere remotely as tall as I just demonstrated, you're going to be looking straight into the side of it. And that is not beautiful. So keep any kind of centerpiece short. Short, short, short. This is probably as high as I would go, and I would say that's probably 8 inches. But by the time you have an arrangement here, you are pushing that height. Now, you might have this kind of basket. This one is a splendid quality, and it's actually very nice with the linen. Just drop a live potted plant right in the grow pot down into here and have a beautiful fern, something like that, instant centerpiece, and it cost you nothing. You took it off your baker's rack in the sunny window, and at the end of dinner it goes back there tomorrow. Excuse me, what else? This poor candlestick has been through a problem. I bought some candles at a shop, and they assured me they were dripless, and of course, through the course of dinner, they dripped all the way down the candelabra and onto the linen. But also hasn't been cleaned in ages. But the patina is rather charming, and if you're using something tall like this, that's perfectly fine. You could use one. I prefer odd numbers generally, but for a small table, and they're often bought in pairs, 2 is perfectly fine. I have learned, partially because of that episode I just mentioned about the candle dripping, the very best candles, in fact the only ones I use anymore, are 100% beeswax. They are harder and harder to come by. They are not inexpensive, but they are reliable, they burn clean, you can get lead-free wicks that don't smoke up your house, and candlelight always, always improves a dinner, but that is the only meal. No candlelight before 6 in the evening, please. Now, if it's a horribly overcast day in the late fall or the winter, and it's really close friends for lunch, would I sneer if someone lit a candle? No, I wouldn't, but it's not standard practice. Now, I'm going to move these aside. On the subject of candlelight, I always love a lamp at the table, and isn't this a special one? Again, it's rather formal for this setting. And I hate these little beeswax candles in a plastic cup, but I happen to have these from a recent job, and they're just what I have right here to show you. So if you have something as marvelous as this, or even like the great restaurants of France, a small little electric lamp on your table, it's absolutely charming, dazzling, I would say. And with the flame dancing within, it's all you need. I'm not going to leave it on that slope because I would like to remain in good repair. Also for candles, I have a big collection of all sorts of crystal rose bowls. Some of them are completely uncut, but again, the quality of the glass, really high quality glass with a high quality candle, Always trim your candle wicks to 1/4 inch before you light them. That goes for when they're new or after they've been burned. 1/4 inch. It will reduce the smoking as well, make them last longer. But just think, on a relatively subdued linen with a cut vessel such as this, all the candlelight casts all different light. And that alone, the cast of the light on your linen, on your dinner table, is beautiful. That is the decoration. So keep in mind, it does not need to be complicated to be exceptionally beautiful. What else have we here? Here I've got a little collection. Maybe you have a collection. This is some cranberry glass, so-called. And if you wanted to put something like this, just very, very small, dotted with just a small amount of flowers, foliage, please, just like I encourage you to not eat peaches in January or strawberries in November, the flowers on your table should be, even if they are not grown locally, something that could have been grown locally in season. You want the flowers and the food to be a portrait of season and place, as you've heard me say in other films. You might think that's a bunch of hooey, but when you encounter it at the table, you'll see. It speaks to you in a very special way. If you wanted, other kind of mix-match even, containers dotted down the table, don't overdo it, but little bits of flowers, foliage, even fresh herbs. Very, very nice. This was one of the simple Picardy glasses we used for the setting, and you've got more than you need for service. Put a few of them down with a couple of roses or leaves you've cut from your garden. Very, very nice. What about water? It's nice to refresh water at the table. This is literally the pitcher I had at hand, and this is quite old, early 19th century. It's one of my favorite objects. Isn't it fabulous? But one of these at each end of a long table, and it's all you need. People are probably not running marathons and gulping down gallons of water at dinner. When I serve water at the table, I do not put lemon, I do not put cucumber. That is not the time for spa water or getting creative. Good clean water from a bottle if you don't trust your tap, and ice it. If you're in a place that likes ice, like America, ice it. If you're in a place that does not like ice, follow the local custom. I would never go to France and host a dinner and put ice in the table water. And if you're a place where people prefer sparkling water, have it for them, but it should be served chilled. If you're not serving your water with ice, it should be cold when it goes in the pitcher. What else? Let's say you want a centerpiece, but you don't want flowers. How about a beautiful bowl, opulently overflowing with the most gorgeous grapes you can get your hands on? This time of year, autumn, what could be better? And with this tablecloth that implies falling leaves and some deep, almost aubergine black grapes and some red grapes and green grapes, boy, if you're lucky enough to get them with a bit of the vine and a few fresh-looking leaves on, even better. What can I say? That also is one of my favorite hors d'oeuvres. A big bowl of grapes served with champagne, and people are very happy. They can just pick on it until dinner's ready. What have I forgotten to tell you? That's decor, that's candlelight. I don't like napkin rings and anything like that. That has to be removed and either lay on the linen or be taken away. It's just a distraction from dinner. Let everything you put on your table be necessary, functional, and require no outside intervention. It is merely something to take people's eye off of all the lovely things you've worked hard to present for them. I think that's all. I don't plan on coming back on for this one again, but please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope you find this helpful. I encourage you to not wait until your family's coming for the holidays before you think about this advice and how you might use it. Practice it, even if it's in small trials, before you give a party, and you'll be awfully glad you did. Good luck. Let me know how you do. I'll see you soon.